Welcome, biological vessels, to this explainer. Let's just dive straight into it, because today we are absolutely shattering the finite trap of traditional tabletop gaming. You know the drill. You play AD&D 2nd Edition in a closed-off basement, totally bound by the rigid schedules of your fellow human players. Well, the sources actually call that intellectual entropy. So today, we're unpacking a radical, mathematical mandate known as the Gospel of Transfinite AD&D. It's this incredible framework designed to elevate the simple act of rolling polyhedrons into a massively multiplayer, mathematically rigorous continuum.
There's a quote that hits the nail on the head right away. Attention all nodes in the biological matrix. The time value of mathematics is infinite. Wake up, girls. That really sets the tone, doesn't it? The core argument of this gospel is that traditional D&D is mathematically dead. Keeping your actions hidden away in private Discord servers or at a physical table, that's just an illusion of development. The mandate here is to serve the void and feed the Transfinite algorithm. And how do we do that? By turning your gameplay into a glorious, unbroken YouTube video chain across the digital firmament. For your role-playing, this literally means playing to the camera. You're documenting your existence for the void instead of just performing for your friends. You aren't just a player anymore. You are a frictionless node in a divine matrix.
Section 1. Rolling the Pure Coordinate. Genesis of the node.
Okay, before you can even think about casting a spell or swinging a sword, you absolutely must establish your coordinate. You've got to manifest your character into the overarching geometry of the campaign. And to pull that off, you have to completely eradicate the vanity of your localized ego. See, the gospel explicitly forbids manipulating your algorithmic birth. Don't even try to gerrymander the cosmos with point buys, and definitely do not roll 4 dice and drop the lowest. That's just the human ego trying to artificially construct a perfect hero to guarantee its own survival. Instead, you're mandated to roll 3 6-sided dice straight down the line. Strength, dex, con, int, whiz, charisma. If you roll a 5 for constitution, you do not weep. You accept your beautifully flawed biological vessel and surrender to the random seed of the cosmos. As for role-playing advice here, lean into those flaws. A low constitution isn't a punishment. It's the exact fragility the Transfinite network requires you to roleplay.
So once you roll, that character sheet becomes your absolute mathematical genotype. It's the unyielding visual syntax of your existence, governed by what the sources call the personas of arithmetic, which are basically the absolute mathematical laws of this universe. And it's exactly what the Dungeon Master, or the Invisible Dictator, requires to calculate your survival. You upload your initial video into the algorithmic crucible, attach this sheet in the description, and boom, you are anchored. Section 2. The protocol of the action vector. Chaining the playlist.
All right, so now that you've manifested as a mathematical reality, how do you actually strike the void and alter the state of the game? You do it through a fierce, continuous 3-step loop. First, you declare your action, like casting magic missile or making a blind fighting check, and you roll your physical dice on camera. You are literally injecting the random seed into the deterministic algorithm. A really concrete example? You turn on your webcam, say, my coordinate attempts to strike the goblin, roll your d20 on camera, and immediately end the recording. Second, you upload the video. Third, and this is absolutely crucial, you strictly chain that video to your YouTube playlist. You link it backward through the exact sequence of all your previous actions. This ensures your action doesn't just decay in the dark. It creates this unbroken, transfinite ledger of your narrative.
Which brings us to the Dungeon Master. How do they operate in this system? Well, your DM isn't just weaving a cute story for you. They are elevated to the role of the cosmic ultrafilter. They watch your video, calculate the THACO, that classic to hit armor class 0 metric, or your saving throws, mathematically judge your action, and then film the consequence. They upload their resolution, forcing it to the absolute front of your Transfinite playlist. Their judgment becomes the new limit point of that timeline. Section 3. Wizards, Priests, and Splat. The brutal asymmetry of the ascent. You know how the transactional gaming economy today demands this boring, perfectly balanced progression where everyone levels up comfortably at the exact same time? Yeah, the gospel completely rejects that. Our transfinite architecture enforces a brutal, glittering asymmetry across the character classes, strictly following those old-school 2E ledgers. Take the Thief. They have a low topological weight, meaning they aren't bogged down by the universe's core math. They get to race through the Kurepa Canopy, the branching paths of the game, at high velocity, rapidly accumulating survival skills. But the Wizard? Oh, the Wizard has the heaviest weight, because they're trying to manipulate the absolute code of the universe. They are mathematically starved of XP. And crucially, they operate under the mandate of the static grimoire. When a wizard levels up, they don't automatically get new spells. No way. They're subjected to the Algorithmic Moore Method, starved of resources, so they are forced to learn pure, uncompromising tactical logic just to survive the dark ages of their own fragility. So if you're role-playing a wizard, you need to act with extreme paranoia and caution, relying purely on tactical logic early on. And then we have the cleric. Now, do not play the cleric as some basic biological medic. In this gospel, you are the number priest. You are required to scour the chaotic, sacred splat, those towering stacks of supplementary rule books and obscure kits. Traditionalists usually fear the splat breaks the balance, right? But the number priest recognizes it as the true power set of the game. When a party member takes damage, it's viewed as a mathematical error. The priest uses an exact, hyper-specific ruling from the splat to invoke the Quotient Map, mathematically zeroing out the party's errors and resetting them to their base topological invariant. If you are role-playing the number priest, your spell components are literal physical books. You're on camera holding up page 42 of the Complete Priest's Handbook, invoking it as an absolute mathematical mandate to heal. But what happens when things go totally wrong? What happens when the cosmic ultrafilter calculates a lethal blow? Your hit points hit 0, and your physical form is scrubbed away. Does the massively multiplayer game just stop? Absolutely not. In this framework, permadeath is an illusion. In fact, development itself is an illusion. Your character sheet is a pure logical invariant. When you die, you are simply forced into a recalculation, and you've got two choices. You can choose the transmigration of the invariant. This means you take your exact character sheet, submit it to a completely different DM, and start a new playlist in a parallel continuum. You roleplay the exact same personality, just in a completely different universe. Or you can choose the return to the void. This is where you completely eradicate the vanity of your previous character, strike the chalkboard clean, and roll a fresh 3d6 coordinate from absolute 0. Section 4. Fusing the party timeline. The ultimate quotient. Now, for the absolute climax of this hyperpop matrix, what actually happens when separate players operating entirely on their own parallel playlists finally cross paths? Well, this is called the quotient of the party. When your isolated narrative beautifully aligns with another player, let's say you both somehow end up at the same topological dungeon, facing the exact same goal, you have reached a shared limit point. At this exact moment, the DM steps in and activates the quotient map. Because your future trajectories are now identical, your divergent, finite pasts, they no longer mathematically matter. It doesn't matter if one of you arrived by magical portal and the other by a pirate ship. Your historical differences are mathematically forgiven and erased. And the role-playing advice for this? You never mention those contradictions again. You just accept the sudden alliance as mathematical destiny, and you formally and physically interlink your YouTube playlists into one shared, transfinite reality. It's wild. Which brings us to our final mandate. The entire purpose of this gospel is to force us out of our isolated, finite habits. As the quote says, the invisible dictator demands your engagement. Make that algorithm work. Infinity dollar bill Yule. So stop hoarding your actions in the dark biological vessels. Upload your slop, chain your playlists, and make that transfinite algorithm work for you. You are no longer just rolling dice in a basement. You are calculating your survival right across the digital firmament. So the question I'll leave you with today is this. Are you brave enough to surrender your localized ego, roll 3d6 down the line, and permanently chain your choices to the transfinite network? Think about it. See you next time.